Hey everyone, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit, and welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a bunch of people asked hand history questions. This one actually came privately via Facebook, and Steve prefaces the hand by saying, "I'd be grateful for your opinion on this hand. Was my preflop call of the 4-bet too loose, even with position and considering the stock sizes? Also, when I hit top pair top kicker on the flop, can I ever realistically get away from it considering the low SPR? Thanks." Okay, so this hand is from 10 No Limit Online. It folds around, there's a raise. Here decides to 3-bet with ace queen off. I'm okay with this so far. End up facing a cold 4-bet from player 9, and it folds back to us. So in this situation, player 9 is a 14-10 with a 1% 3-bet over a 354, and this is a little awkward for two reasons. First and foremost is that we're getting a pretty great price plus position at roughly 3.5 to 1, and it's very, very rare when I'm getting a great price plus position that I ever even consider folding. The other thing is that this dude is shaping out to be pretty tight over the sample size. So 1410 over 354, definitely a usable sample for those two numbers. So I'm assuming that this person is definitely going to be on kind of like the nit or the nit tag side of the spectrum. And the 1% 3-bet is the one that's really throwing us off here. So in case you didn't already know it, a 0.9% range is exactly King's Plus. So that being said, that's pretty much 1%, so it'd be pretty realistic to say that player 9 has a King's Plus range here when he 3-bets, in which case obviously we're totally screwed and we don't have that much equity. But the thing is here is 354 hands isn't necessarily enough to say that's 100% true, because it'd be different if we had like 3,000 hands and he had a 1% 3-bet. Then we could say, yeah, that's probably pretty fair. But how many like realistic 3-bet chances has he had? Has he really had a lot of like re-steal chances, which usually buff up a 3-bet percentage? And it's difficult to say. So I'm not going to assume King's Plus here because it's pretty dangerous in my opinion to assume someone has exactly King's Plus unless you're like very, very, very positive and very, confirmed that that's actually true. So I'm going to assign a more default range of Queens plus Ace King. And I'd just say that's probably pretty fair. And I'd operate under that assumption. And if we assign that range and plug it into Equilab, you notice that we have essentially 24% equity. Given the price, we need 22. So this is kind of close for sure. So there are a couple things that you need to think about here. And I'm going to spend pretty much all the time talking about this hand preflop because this is really, really important. So it's important because no matter what we do here, we're making a pretty committing decision. So if we call, we're putting ourselves into a pretty nothing SPR, and we're pretty much going to be stacking off anytime we catch top pair, which kind of feeds right into the question that you asked, can you ever get away from top pair, top kicker on the flop? The answer is pretty much no. It's just really a function of SPR, because at that point you're talking about under 2 SPR, so stack it off, be done with it, it is what it is. The thing you have to ask yourself is, I mentioned a moment ago that we have 24% equity against that Queens plus Ace King range, and we need 22, whatever. And that's hot cold equity. That's assuming that we're going to see all the cards. And oftentimes that's not going to be the case. If, say, we miss the flop, he makes a big bet at us and we fold, obviously we didn't get to actualize all of that hot cold equity. And that's really, really important to consider. So you can't just look at that number. You have to ask yourself, will you win this pot at least 22% of the time? And part of that is asking yourself, okay, the times that he has ace king, and mind you, ace king is going to make up a decent density of the range of hands that he 3-bets preflop. When he has ace king, what's he going to do on the flop when he misses? And if he's going to be like check folding that, then you just start winning this pot a lot more than just 22% of the time, because you're going to have equity somewhat, you're going to hit sometimes, and then there's going to be times when he check folds. And that's a great, great, great thing for you. So you have to consider those things and how often, is that going to happen? And this is when you can pull out things like Flopzilla and start looking at a range of something like Queens plus Ace King and how does that realistically hit the board? Is he going to do anything really predictable? When he misses, is he going to check fold? Blah, blah, blah. And then start creating a plan of attack from there. So this is a great hand to actually study off the table. And to be honest, a big part of this is awkward simply because of the stack size of player 9. That's going to create that really small SPR. Yes, we're getting a great price here, but the small SPR is going to make things pretty awkward, and that's why we have to have a really, really definitive plan right this moment. Okay, so to recap in this situation, I would only ever consider folding if player 9 would 4-bet only the super nuts. Typically, I'm going to call, and I'm going to call because I'm getting a great price. I'm going to call because I have position, and I'm going to call because I have a clear, definitive, what I think is profitable plan going into post-flop. And I'm really never going to go for the shove here, simply because against a range of queens plus ace king, I don't assume there's any fold equity, right? I don't assume he's ever going to like fold anything. And if that's the case, it's not going to be a good shove. All I'm doing is putting in more money as an equity dog. So because of that, I'm not going to make that play. So I'm really just going to call here and go forward from there. So we end up calling, go here, and to answer the other question, if we hit top pair, top kicker on the flop, can we ever realistically get away from it? I'd say the answer is most certainly not, given the SPR. So it's just one of those where if he bets, we're just going to stack it off. It's just how do we do it? Here I decided to go for the call down approach, and that works. You could also shove the flop. I mean, either one really works. It's a small SPR. There's really like no question at that point. It's more just how do you want to get your stack inside? And that being said, we run into aces, and yes, that sucks. And honestly, whether you assign a range of kings plus pre or a range of queens plus ace king, aces is in both of those ranges. So we're not going to be shocked when we run into this some percentage of the time. It happens. Don't beat yourself up over it. Just make sure that you assign the right range pre-flop, that you stuck to your plan. And again, there's no getting rid of this hand post-flop, so I'm glad that you stuck to that plan given the SPR. And preflop is really, really important. Again, you have to really decipher what does that range look like? What does your equity look like in a hot-cold sense? What does your playability look like in terms of how are you going to be able to win it? Especially, are there any ways to win it when you miss, or if you can take advantage of the times that they miss? And then also understanding, is this a good spot to jam preflop? And I'd say no, unless, of course, you thought there was some fold equity or somehow some range advantage or equity advantage, sorry, and I don't really see that happening either. So Steve, thanks for the great hand, and if you or anyone else has a poker-related hand or question, feel free to leave it on our Google Plus page. Leave a link for that in the description box, and also please make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this type of video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there, and happy grinding.